The night market was almost empty. Only a few weak lamps burned against the cold wind. Most stalls were abandoned, their owners long gone. Dust moved with the wind, carrying the smell of old food, broken wood, and fear. A lone human traveler named Ethan walked slowly through the ruined street, his coat heavy on his shoulders, his eyes sharp though he looked tired. He was not looking for trouble, but trouble often found him. He had crossed many alien towns before, each one broken by war, hunger, or greed. He had seen desperate faces, but tonight he saw something that made him stop. At the center of the square, under the shadow of a broken statue, a woman knelt on the cold ground. Her skin was pale blue, her long silver hair tangled and dirty. She was not begging for food or coins. She was begging for someone to listen, please. She whispered in a voice cracked by tears. My daughter. They took her away. Most who passed ignored her. Some laughed quietly. Some muttered cruel words. To them, she was just another broken soul in a city full of pain. But Ethan did not move on. He stood still, watching her, studying the tremble of her hands and the hollow in her eyes. The woman saw him. Her eyes widened. She pushed herself up and stumbled toward him. Her knees hit the stone as she dropped before him. Her hands grabbed at his boots. You are human, she said, her voice trembling. Humans still have honor. I will give you everything. Everything I own, my jewels, my secrets, even my life, if you bring back my child. Ethan looked down at her. His face was unreadable. He had heard such cries before. Promises made in pain, offers of riches that meant little in broken lands. But there was something in her eyes that pulled at him. It was not just despair. It was love, sharp as a blade. What happened? Ethan asked quietly, his voice steady like stone. They came from the shadows, she said, her hands shaking as she pointed to the alleys behind her. Raiders, hunters, I tried to fight, but they struck me down. When I woke, she was gone, my little Ara, only 7 seasons old. Her words broke, her body shaking as if the memory itself tore at her. Ethan crouched, so his eyes met hers. He studied the marks on her arms, the bruises on her neck. He saw the dirt on her skin, but also the strength in her shoulders. She had fought for her child until she fell. He respected that. What is your name? He asked. Liara, she whispered. My name is Liara. Ethan nodded slowly. He could have walked away. He could have told her that her child was already lost, that the world was cruel and nothing could be done. That was the easy path. But as he looked at Liara's face, streaked with tears and dust, something inside him stirred. Stand up, Ethan said firmly. His voice made her lift her head. Show me where they took her. Liara gasped. Hope and fear crashed together in her chest. She rose unsteady, her hands gripping his sleeve as if he might vanish. She led him into the narrow alleys, the lamps fading until only the moon guided them. The walls were scarred with claw marks that glowed faintly in the dark. Strange symbols were carved into stone. Ethan touched one, feeling the cold burn against his skin. This was no simple crime. This was the mark of those who dealt in stolen children. Liara covered her mouth, her eyes wide with terror. Please, she whispered. Don't leave me here alone. Ethan looked at her, and then at the shadows stretching long across the ground. He adjusted the strap of his weapon and spoke with calm resolve. I will help you, he said. But understand, Liara, this path will not be easy. You asked me to bring back your daughter. It may cost more than gold or secrets. Liara's voice broke, but her words were strong. I will give anything, even my life, if only she can live. For a long moment, Ethan studied her. Her eyes held no lies, only the desperate fire of a mother. He gave a single nod. Then we begin, Ethan said. The wind howled as they stepped deeper into the shadows. Behind them, the empty market was silent. Before them, the unknown stretched, like a dark ocean. But Liara's heart beat with a spark of hope for the first time since her daughter was taken. And Ethan, though he would never admit it, felt the weight of her trust heavy on his shoulders. The bargain had been made. A human had agreed to stand against the darkness for the sake of one alien child. Neither of them knew what they would face, but both knew one thing. There was no turning back now. The narrow alleys stretched like a maze, broken stone underfoot, dark walls leaning in from both sides. Ethan walked carefully, his eyes sharp, his steps quiet. Beside him, Liara moved quickly, her breath uneven, her hand gripping her torn cloak as if it were the last piece of safety she had left. She stopped suddenly and pointed at a corner where the stones looked scratched. Deep claw marks ran across the wall, glowing faintly blue in the moonlight. They were too large to belong to any common thief. Ethan crouched and touched the grooves. The strange glow pulsed against his skin, cold and sharp. "These marks," Ethan said quietly. "They are not just from claws, they are a sign, a trail left behind." Liara's lips trembled. "I know who made them," she whispered, her voice weak. "The night raiders. They take children. They sell them. No one dares to follow, no one dares to fight them." Her hands shook as she wrapped her arms around herself. Ethan looked at her, his face calm but his mind sharp. "And yet you asked me to fight them," he said. Her eyes met his, glowing faintly with tears. "Because you are human. I have seen humans fight even when they have nothing left. I have nothing but my child. I cannot stop. Not until I know if she still lives." They moved deeper into the ruins of the district. Abandoned doors hung loose. Strange shadows crawled along the walls. From time to time, Ethan stopped, scanning the ground. The dust showed marks of heavy boots, dragged footprints, even small bare feet pressed into the dirt. Liara gasped when she saw them. "Ara," she whispered, falling to her knees. Her fingers traced the tiny marks as if they were holy. She was here, she was here. Ethan knelt beside her, studying the direction of the prints. They led away from the city's heart, toward the broken outskirts where the ruins grew older and more dangerous. He stood, his hand tightening on his weapon. "We follow," he said. They walked in silence for a long time, the night pressing down on them. The wind carried faint voices, laughter far away, the crackle of fire where no home should be. Liara clung to Ethan's shadow. Fear, heavy in her every step at last. They reached the edge of the old quarter where the city fell into forgotten ruins. The walls here were covered in more glowing marks, strange symbols carved long ago. Ethan touched one and frowned. The air felt colder, heavier, as if something old and cruel still lived here. Liara's voice shook. "These ruins. Once they were temples, then prisons. Now they are used by raiders. I prayed never to walk here again." Ethan looked at her. "And yet here you are. For your child." She swallowed hard, her eyes full of both fear and fire. "For Ara, I would walk through death itself." As they moved deeper, a faint sound reached them. Ethan froze, his hand raised. Liara stopped, her breath held. From the dark halls came a soft, broken cry. It was faint, almost like the wind, but it carried the sharp tone of a child's voice. Liara's heart leapt. "It's her," she whispered, tears rushing to her eyes. "It's Ara. I know her cry." She tried to run forward, but Ethan caught her arm and held her still. "Wait," he said firmly. "It could be a trick. They know you will follow a voice. They want you to rush blind." Liara trembled in his grip, her chest rising and falling fast. "But what if it's really her? What if she needs me?" Ethan looked into the shadows ahead. His eyes were hard, calculating. He had walked into traps before. He knew the smell of bait when he saw it, yet he could not ignore the sound of a child crying. His jaw tightened. "We go carefully," he said at last. "Stay behind me. Do not move until I tell you." Liara nodded, though her hands shook so badly she could barely hold her cloak. Ethan led the way, his steps soft, his weapon ready. The hall twisted, broken stone crunching underfoot. The faint cry came again, but this time it sounded further away, as if moving, as if pulled deeper. They followed until the hall opened into a wide chamber lit by the dim glow of alien torches. Ethan stopped at the edge and pulled Liara down into the shadows. Together, they watched across the chamber. A group of raiders moved, tall, armored, their faces hidden behind dark masks. They carried cages, small and cruel. Inside one, a child's hand pressed weakly against the bars. Liara bit down on her cry, tears spilling. Ethan studied them, counting. Learning their movements, he saw weapons, guards at every corner. He saw fear on the children's faces. He felt his chest tighten with anger. They are not just slavers, he said under his breath. They are something worse. They don't just take children, they break them. Liara clutched his arm, her nails digging into his coat. Her voice was barely a breath. Please, Ethan, whatever happens, promise me. Promise me you will save her. Ethan did not answer right away. His eyes stayed on the raiders, on the cages, on the faint light of suffering. He had a choice before him. Walk away and live, or step into the dark for a child he had never known. At last he turned his head slightly, his voice quiet but strong. I will try, but you must stay alive if I am to save her. Liara nodded, her tears falling silently. For the first time she believed she had found someone who would not abandon her, and as the raiders moved deeper into the ruins, Ethan's eyes hardened like steel. The hunt for Era had truly begun. The ruins stood like the skeleton of a forgotten age. Broken towers leaned against each other, their shadows stretching long under the pale moon. The air was colder here, heavy with dust and silence. Even the stars above seemed dimmer, as if they too feared to shine upon this place. Ethan led the way, his eyes scanning every broken wall, every pile of stone. He had walked through dangerous lands before, but these ruins felt different. They were not just old, they were haunted by memory. Liara followed close behind, clutching her cloak. Her breaths came fast and uneven, her heart pounding at every sound. They passed broken statues half buried in dirt, faces carved in stone with hollow eyes. Once they might have been guardians of a temple, now they looked more like watchers of doom. Strange machines, rusted and twisted, lay scattered across the ground, long forgotten by the people who had once ruled here. Liara shivered, her voice barely a whisper. When I was a child, my mother warned me never to come near these ruins. She said this place drank the souls of those who entered. She said screams could still be heard at night. Ethan glanced back at her, his expression calm. Sometimes fear is used to keep people away from places where truth is hidden. But as they walked further, he too felt the weight of unseen eyes. The silence was broken only by the crunch of their boots and the low howl of the wind moving through hollow stone. Suddenly a faint sound echoed through the halls ahead. It was sharp, metallic like chains rattling. Liara gasped and gripped Ethan's arm. Do you hear that? She whispered. Ethan nodded slowly. His hand rested on the weapon at his belt. He moved forward with caution, stepping around the broken pieces of the past. They entered a wide hall where columns stretched high, cracked but still standing. Symbols glowed faintly on the walls, the same kind they had seen before. Liara touched one of the glowing marks with trembling fingers. These were carved by the raiders, she said. They use the old temple's power to hide their crimes. People are too afraid to follow them here. Ethan studied the symbols, the glow pulsing like a heartbeat. It means we're close, he muttered. They left this trail to mark their path. As they moved deeper into the ruins, the air grew thicker. It smelled of smoke and something bitter, like burned metal. Ethan crouched low and motioned for Liara to stay quiet. Ahead, faint lights flickered between the cracks of broken stone. When they reached the edge of a collapsed wall, Ethan raised a hand and pulled Liara down beside him. Together they looked into a chamber below. What they saw made Liara's breath catch in her throat. A camp of raiders had been built inside the ancient hall. Fires burned in pits. Cages lined the far wall. Shadows moved. Large figures armored in black, their masks glowing faintly red. Ethan counted at least a dozen, but there could be more hidden in the dark. Liara's eyes filled with tears when she spotted a small piece of cloth tied to one cage. It was bright yellow, though torn and dirty. That's Ara's scarf, she whispered, her hands shaking. I tied it myself. She never went anywhere without it. Ethan's eyes followed her gaze. He saw the scarf too. His jaw tightened. He knew what it meant. The girl was here, alive or dead, they would soon find out. Liara tried to stand, her body trembling with desperation, but Ethan caught her wrist and pulled her back down. "Not yet," he said firmly. "If you rush in, you'll both die, and so will every child in those cages." Liara's tears spilled as she covered her mouth. She wanted to scream her daughter's name, to tear the cages open with her bare hands, but she saw the cold fire in Ethan's eyes and forced herself to stay still. The raiders were speaking in low voices. Their words carried a cruel tone. Ethan's ears caught pieces of it. Talk of buyers, of experiments, of children being moved before dawn. His blood boiled. He turned to Liara, whispering low, "They will not just keep her, they will break her. We move carefully, but soon, very soon, I will strike." Liara's heart pounded. She had never held a weapon, never fought a soldier. She was a mother, not a warrior. But as she looked at the cages, at the small scarf tied to the bars, she felt something awaken inside her. If her child's life depended on it, she would fight. Ethan studied the guards, mapping their steps, the way they walked, the blind spots between torches. He was calculating a way in. His mind was sharp, his body steady. He knew time was against them. Then, from deep within the ruins, another sound rose. A child's cry, soft but filled with terror. It echoed through the stone like a knife cutting the air. Liara's whole body jerked. She pressed her hand to her mouth to stop her scream. Tears rolled down her face. Ethan's eyes narrowed, his heart clenched. That cry was real. It was not a trick this time. The girl was alive and she was close. He looked at Liara, her face pale, her body shaking with both hope and fear. "Stay close," he whispered. "From here on, every step we take will be more dangerous than the last." Liara nodded, her voice breaking. "I trust you, Ethan. Please, bring her back to me." Ethan gave a short nod. His eyes turned back to the camp. The shadows of the raiders moved like monsters around the cages. The firelight made their armor gleam red. The ruins had become a battlefield of silence, and Ethan knew one thing. The time for waiting was ending. The time for action was coming, and in the heart of those ruins, a desperate mother and a human stranger prepared to face the darkness together, bound by a single promise, the life of a lost child. The chamber was alive with firelight, shadows dancing across the cracked walls of the ruins. The raiders had made this place their den, their lair, and the old stones seemed to groan under the weight of their cruelty. Ethan crouched low, watching from the shadows above. His eyes studied everything: the guards at the edges, the cages against the far wall, the way the raiders moved around, the fire pits. Every detail mattered. For him, survival was not luck, it was calculation. Liara lay beside him, her trembling hands clutching her cloak. Her eyes were fixed on a small cage near the center. There, tied with rope, was the yellow scarf, dirtied but still bright against the dark bars. Her daughter's scarf. Her heart pounded so hard it hurt. "There," she whispered with shaking lips. "Ara is in that cage, I know it, I can feel it." Ethan gave a slight nod, but his voice was calm. "Not yet, Liara. We wait, we watch. If we move too fast, we lose everything." Liara turned her face toward him, her eyes wet with tears. "But she is right there, Ethan. She is so close, if they hurt her while we hide." Her words broke, her voice too weak to finish. Ethan looked at her, his jaw tight. He understood her pain, but pain was not strategy. "If you want her alive," he said quietly, "you must trust me. I will not leave her. But we cannot run blind." "Into their teeth." Liara pressed her forehead to the cold stone, her body shaking. She hated the truth of his words, hated the waiting, but she forced herself to stay still. Below, the raiders gathered around the fire. Their armor was black, their masks cruel and sharp, glowing faintly with red light. They carried heavy blades and strange rifles. Their voices rumbled in a tongue Liara did not fully know, but Ethan listened, carefully catching words between the growls. "They speak of buyers," Ethan whispered, his eyes narrowing. "They are moving the children before dawn. We don't have much time." Liara's stomach twisted. She imagined Ara being dragged further into darkness. sold to monsters she could not even imagine. Her hands clenched into fists, her fear turned into something else. Anger. Ethan noticed it, the way her shoulders straightened, the way her trembling stopped. "Good," he said softly. "Hold on to that fire, it will keep you alive." Suddenly, one of the raiders rose, taller than the rest. His armor was heavier, lined with scars. His mask bore sharp horns. Marking him as the leader, he moved to the cages, dragging one child out by the arm. The child screamed, the sound echoing through the chamber like a knife. Liara bit down on her cry. Her body shook with rage. Ethan placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "Not now," he whispered. "We strike when the moment is right." The leader threw the child to the ground near the fire. The raiders laughed. The child's small form curled, whimpering. Liara pressed her fist to her mouth to stop the scream rising in her throat. Her eyes burned with tears. Then, she saw something. A small hand pressed against the bars of the yellow scarf cage. The fingers were thin, trembling but alive. Liara's breath caught. She knew that hand. She knew it as surely as she knew her own heartbeat. "Ara," she mouthed silently. Her daughter was alive, trapped, terrified, but alive. Ethan saw. It too, his eyes locked on the cage, his mind sharpened. He had faced death before, but this was different. This was not about him. This was about a child, about a promise. He leaned close to Liara, his voice low and firm. "Listen to me. I will get her out. But you must do exactly as I say. No matter what you see. No matter what happens, stay quiet until I give the word." Liara's tears fell silently, but she nodded. "I trust you," she whispered. "Just bring her back to me." Ethan gave one final look at the chamber below, memorizing every step, every shadow, every weakness in their defense. He pulled back into the darkness. Liara followed, her heart torn between hope and terror. They moved silently along the edge of the ruins, circling toward a broken stair that led down. Ethan moved like a shadow, his body steady, his breath calm. Liara tried to copy his steps, though her legs shook with every movement. From below, the sound of raiders laughing rose, their cruel joy echoing through the ruins. Sound made Liara's stomach twist, but it also fed her anger. She whispered a promise to herself. "I will see her again. I will hold her again." At the bottom of the stair, Ethan stopped, pressing his back to the wall. He studied the path ahead. 2 guards stood near the cages, their weapons slung across their shoulders. Their eyes glowed faint under their masks. Ethan's hand rested on his blade, his mind already playing the next steps. He knew the risk. One mistake, and both he and Liara would be dead, but there was no turning back. He looked at Liara one last time, his voice steady as stone. "Stay low, stay silent. When I move, follow close. And when you see your daughter, be ready to run." Liara's heart pounded, her throat dry, but she nodded. She whispered a single word. "Yes." Together, they slipped into the shadows of the enemy's lair. The fire crackled, the raiders laughed, but none of them yet knew that a human and a desperate mother had already entered their den, ready to steal back what had been taken. The hunt was no longer silent watching. It was about to begin. The air inside the ruins was heavy, thick with smoke and the bitter scent of burned oil. Ethan pressed himself against the cracked wall, his body still as stone. His eyes never left the cages. His mind never stopped counting, calculating. Every guard's step, every turn of the head, every shadow cast by the firelight. Beside him, Liara crouched low, her body trembling. Her eyes were fixed on one cage only, the one with the yellow scarf tied to its bars. She could see the faint movement inside, the small hand gripping the metal. Her child was there, so close she could almost hear Ara's soft breath. Her heart begged her to run, to tear the cage apart, but Ethan's hand on her arm held her still. He leaned close, his voice low. "I can get to her, but listen, Liara. There are more children here, not just your daughter. If I free only Ara, the others will remain, broken, sold, maybe worse. I cannot walk away knowing they will suffer." Liara's eyes widened, her lips parted in shock. But my daughter, she is my life, Ethan. You don't understand. She is all I have left. Her voice cracked. Ethan's gaze was sharp, unshaken. I understand more than you think. But if we save only one, the raiders win. They will hunt us. They will take more children. It never ends. But if we strike right, if we fight now, we free them all. We end this. Liara's tears spilled down her cheeks. She shook her head, torn apart by fear and love. But one human against so many, it is madness. You cannot fight them all. Ethan's hand tightened on his blade, his jaw clenched. I've fought worse odds, and I've walked away, but I will not walk away from this. For a long moment, silence pressed between them. Only the crackle of fire and the cruel laughter of raiders filled the chamber. Liara's hands trembled as she reached for Ethan's sleeve. Then promise me, Ethan. Promise me that no matter what, you will bring Ara out alive. If I must lose everything else, I cannot lose her. Ethan met her eyes. His voice was quiet, but unyielding. I promise I will do everything in my power, but you must be strong. You must be ready to run when I give the word. Do not stop, not for anything. Liara nodded, though her heart ached with the weight of that promise. She pressed her forehead briefly against the cold stone, whispering, a silent prayer to stars that no longer shone. Ethan's body shifted, ready to move. He drew his blade slowly, its steel catching the faint red light of the fire below. His other hand reached for a small device strapped to his belt. A flash charge, old but powerful. He only had one. It would blind the raiders long enough to strike. He pointed to the cages, with his chin whispering, when the light bursts, I go in. Stay low. Stay behind me. Get to your daughter's cage. When I open it, you take her. You don't look back. Liara swallowed hard, her hands shaking. And the others, she whispered. Ethan's eyes burned with fire. I'll free them too, all of them. That is my choice. Liara's chest tightened. She wanted to argue, to beg him to think only of Ara, but something in his eyes silenced her. He was not just a man with a weapon. He was a force, steady as stone, fierce as fire. Down below, the raiders shifted, some rising, others tossing bones into the flames. The leader stood near the cages, his voice low and cruel. His hand struck one child across the face when they whimpered too loud. Liara flinched. Ethan's jaw hardened. His choice had already been made. Slowly, he slipped the flash charge from his belt. His thumb brushed the trigger. His lips moved in a whisper, not to Liara, not to the raiders, but to himself. This ends tonight. He threw the charge. It hit the stones near the fire, and in an instant the chamber erupted in white light, brighter than any star. The raiders cried out, blinded, stumbling. Their weapons clattered as they raised hands to their masks. Ethan leapt from the shadows like a storm. His blade struck the first raider before the man could even cry out. Blood sprayed, the fire roared. Liara covered her mouth, frozen in awe and terror as Ethan moved with deadly precision. Now, Liara, he shouted, his voice sharp and strong. Go to your daughter now. Liara's body jolted into motion. She ran, her legs nearly giving out beneath her. Her hands reached the cage with the yellow scarf. Ara's small eyes widened inside, tears streaming down her face. Mother, she cried, her voice broken. Liara fell to her knees, gripping the bars. Ara, my baby, hold on, we'll get you out. Behind her, the clash of steel and the roar of battle filled the chamber. Ethan fought like a man possessed. His blade cut through raiders, his fists struck, his movements swift and merciless. But for everyone he cut down, another rose. Liara reached through the bars, touching her daughter's hand. Ara sobbed, clinging to her fingers. Don't leave me. Never, Liara whispered. I'll never leave you again. The lock clattered as Ethan struck it with his blade between fights. The cage door burst open. Ara stumbled into her mother's arms. Liara pulled her close, holding her so tightly it hurt, but Ethan's voice thundered above the chaos. Run, Liara, run now. Liara hesitated, her eyes wide. She wanted to stay, to fight beside him. But Ethan's eyes burned into hers, fierce and commanding. And in that moment she understood. His choice was not just to save Ara, it was to save them all, even if it cost him everything. She lifted Ara in her arms, pressing the child against her chest, her tears mixed with sweat and blood. Her legs moved, pushing her toward the shadows, toward freedom, Ethan's voice echoing. Behind her, the human had made his choice, and now the ruins would burn with it. The chamber erupted into chaos. The flash charge had blinded the raiders, but now their rage filled the ruins like thunder. Ethan fought in the center of it, his blade flashing, his fists striking. His movements were sharp and fast, each strike fueled by fury. Liara clutched Ara close to her chest, the child's thin arms wrapped around her neck. She ran toward the shadows along the wall, her breath short, her legs weak. Every step felt like it might be her last. But she did not stop. She would not stop. Behind her, the sound of steel striking steel rang loud. Raiders roared in anger, their boots pounding against the stone. Ethan's voice cut through the noise, strong and commanding. "Run, Liara, don't look back, run!" Liara pressed, Ara's head against her shoulder, and obeyed. Tears streamed down her face. She could hear Ara sobbing, whispering, "Mother, don't let go. Don't let go." "I won't, my little one, never again," Liara whispered, her voice breaking. But as she neared the broken arch at the far side of the chamber, two raiders stepped into her path, their red masks glowing, weapons raised. Liara froze, her heart slamming in her chest. She had no blade, no strength to fight. Ethan saw them. His body moved without thought. He slammed his blade into the chest of one raider, then kicked the other back. His roar filled the hall. "Go!" Liara stumbled forward, clutching Ara tighter. She ducked past the bodies, her breath ragged. The arch led into a narrow passage. Where the torches burned low, Ethan turned, facing the swarm of raiders that still charged at him. Sparks flew as blades clashed. His arm bled, his chest burned. But he did not slow. He fought not for himself, but for the mother and child who ran behind him. Liara reached the passage and turned her head. Her eyes widened at the sight of Ethan standing against so many. His figure was dark, his blade shining in firelight. He looked like a wall no enemy could break. Her heart ached. She wanted to run back, to help him. But Ara's small voice pulled her forward. "Mother, please don't stop." She nodded, wiping her tears with her sleeve. "Hold on, Ara, we're almost safe." The passage twisted, broken stones littering the floor. Liara's foot caught. She stumbled, but she did not let Ara fall. Her arms ached, her breath burned, but she carried her daughter as if her strength had no limit. Behind them, a roar shook the walls. The leader of the raiders had joined the fight. His heavy armor clanged as he swung a massive blade. Ethan blocked the strike, the impact rattling his bones. The force threw him back against a wall, but he stood again, blood running down his brow. "You dare steal from me, human," the leader growled, his voice deep and cruel. "These children are mine. Their lives are mine." Ethan spat blood and lifted his blade. "Not tonight," he said, his voice low, steady. They clashed, steel against steel, the sparks lighting the chamber like fireflies. Ethan's body screamed with pain, but his spirit burned hotter than the flames around him. Each strike was for Ara. Each block was for Liara. Liara could hear the battle echoing through the ruins. Her chest tightened with fear. She wanted to run faster, but Ara was weak, her small body shaking. Liara slowed, pressing her forehead against her daughter's hair. "Stay awake, my love. Stay with me." Ara lifted her head weakly, her voice soft. "I'm scared, mother." Liara kissed her forehead. "I am too, but we will be safe soon, I promise." At that moment, the chamber behind them roared with fire. Ethan had struck a fuel barrel. Flames leapt high, consuming wood, tents, and cages. The raiders screamed. In rage and fear as their lair burned, the smoke rolled through the passages. Thick and black, Ethan pushed forward, striking the leader again and again. His muscles burned, his blade heavy, but he refused to fall. At last, he shoved the leader back toward the fire. The raider roared, swinging wildly, but his own weight betrayed him. The flames swallowed him as he fell, his scream shaking the walls until silence took him. Ethan staggered, his chest heaving. His arms trembled with exhaustion. But when he looked toward the passage, he saw Liara and Ara running, the sight giving him strength. He turned back to the cages still locked. He could not leave the other, children. With a cry, he cut through the bars, one cage after another. The children stumbled out, their eyes wide with terror. "Go!" he shouted, pointing to the passage. "Run, follow her!" They obeyed, their small feet slapping against the stone as they fled. Liara gasped when she saw them rushing out behind her. More children, alive, freed. Her tears fell again, not only for Ara, but for them all. Ethan was the last to leave the burning chamber. His legs almost gave way as he entered the passage, smoke choking his lungs, but his eyes found Liara's, and her look of pure gratitude steadied him. Together they pressed forward, the fire chasing them. The ruins shook as if the stones themselves wanted to collapse. But still they ran, mother, child, and the human who had become their shield. The night air hit them as they stumbled out into the open, cool and sharp against their burning lungs. The children fell to the ground, coughing but alive. Liara sank to her knees, clutching Ara against her chest. Ethan leaned against a broken wall, blood running down his arm, his chest rising and falling with exhaustion. The ruins behind them burned, smoke rising into the starless sky. The enemy's lair was gone, their power broken, and though danger was not yet past for the first time, Liara held her daughter in her arms and felt the weight of hope again. The night outside the ruins was cold, but compared to the fire inside, it felt like freedom. The flames rose high, painting the sky orange. Sparks drifted like fireflies as the old stones groaned and collapsed. The enemy's lair was gone, but the danger had not yet ended. Liara sat on the ground, her arms wrapped tightly around Ara. The child's small frame trembled, her face buried against her mother's chest. Liara kissed her hair again and again, whispering words of comfort, words she had prayed she would one day speak again. "You're safe now, my little star. I've got you. I'll never let go." Around them, the freed children huddled together, their eyes wide with fear but also with relief. They were alive, rescued from cages of darkness. Some clung to one another, some cried softly, but all looked toward Ethan as if he were something more than human. Ethan stood a few steps away, leaning against a broken wall. His body was covered in cuts. Blood ran from his arm and forehead. His chest rose and fell with heavy breaths, but his eyes were steady. He had done what he promised. Liara looked at him, her tears shining in the glow of the fire. She rose carrying Ara and walked toward him. "You kept your word," she whispered, her voice breaking. "You brought her back to me. You brought them all back, Ethan. I offered you treasure, secrets, even my life. But you asked for nothing. Why? Why would you risk everything for us?" Ethan met her gaze. His voice was quiet, rough from battle. "Because no one else would. Because a child's life is worth more than gold, more than secrets, more than me." Liara's chest tightened. Her tears fell faster. She sank to her knees before him, Ara still in her arms. "Then take my life. Take my loyalty. Take everything I have. You are no longer just a man to me. You are my savior." Ethan shook his head, his eyes tired but firm. "I don't need your life, Liara. You've given me something already. Something more than I've had in years." Liara frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" Ethan's lips curved slightly. Not quite a smile, but close. "You trusted me. You believed in me when you had no reason to. That is worth more than treasure." Liara lowered her head. Her hands trembled as she pressed Ara closer. "Then let me give you more. Not treasure, not secrets, but loyalty. From this day forward, my life belongs to you. I owe you everything, Ethan. You gave me back my child. You gave me back hope." Ethan's eyes softened. He looked at the mother and child before him, at the other children still clinging together. He thought of the road ahead, of dangers still waiting. But he knew one thing. He could not leave them now. The sound of footsteps broke the moment. From the distance, more raiders approached, drawn by the smoke and flames. Ethan straightened, though his body ached with pain. He raised his blade again, his eyes sharp. They're coming, he said. Liara stood quickly, her fear replaced by fierce resolve. Then we fight, she said. Though her hands shook, Ethan looked at her, a weary smirk touching his lips. You said you weren't a fighter. Liara's arms tightened around Ara, her eyes burning with fire. I am a mother, that is stronger. The raiders appeared at the edge of the burning ruins, their weapons glinting in the firelight. But when they saw the blaze, when they saw their lair destroyed, many hesitated. Some turned and fled, fear stronger than their rage. Others pressed forward, their voices rising in anger. Ethan stepped in front of the children, his blade steady. He was just one man, but he stood like a wall of iron. Liara moved beside him, her body shaking but her eyes unyielding. The children pressed close behind, their small voices whispering prayers. The raiders charged. Ethan met them with steel, his blade flashed, his body moving through exhaustion pulled at him. Liara grabbed a broken spear from the ground, holding it in shaking hands. When one raider drew close, she thrust with all her strength. The spear struck true. The raider fell. Ethan's heart surged. With pride, the desperate mother who had once begged on her knees now stood fighting, not only for her daughter but for every child behind her. Together they held the line. At last, the raiders broke, their courage failing against the fire and fury of a human and a mother. They fled into the night, leaving their dead behind. Silence fell again, broken only by the crackle of flames and the soft sobs of children. Ethan lowered his blade, his body finally giving way. He dropped to one knee, blood soaking his side. Liara rushed to him, dropping Ara gently beside the other children. She caught Ethan before he could fall. No, stay with me, don't leave us now. Ethan looked at her, his vision blurred, his lips curved faintly. I told you, Liara. I'd bring her back. That was the promise. Liara's tears fell onto his face as she held him. You did more than that. You gave us all a future, you gave me back my soul. Ethan's eyes closed for a moment, his body heavy. But then he felt Ara's small hand on his arm, her voice soft and trembling. Thank you, human, thank you for saving us. His eyes opened again, and in them burned the last fire of his strength. He whispered, No, Ara. Thank your mother. She never gave up on you. Liara pressed her forehead against his, her voice fierce. And I will never give up on you, Ethan. From this day, wherever you go, I will follow. You are not alone anymore. The fire roared behind them. The night stretched wide before them. The ruins of pain lay in ashes. But from those ashes, something new had risen. A bond stronger than fear. Stronger than gold. A bond between a human and an alien mother, sealed by sacrifice and loyalty. The children huddled close. Ara clinging to her mother. Liara holding both daughter and blade. Ethan standing once more, weak but unbroken. Together they stepped away from the ruins, not as strangers but as something more. A family born in fire,